There is only one you, and that is your superpower. You can't F that up. However, you can get stuck. That's why I created this space called Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons. Unstuck Yourself is about figuring out what has you feeling frustrated, isolated, or depleted of energy so that you're able to unstuck yourself on your journey through life when you don't know how to move forward. Unstuck yourself in your career that no longer excites and challenges you. Unstuck yourself with negative thoughts that seem to be doing cartwheels in your head consistently. I don't have the answers. You do. You always have. I'm providing the time, space, and grace for you to reconnect to that knowing. I'm Crystal Simmons, coach, speaker, and facilitator, and I'm grateful you made it here. Let's begin to unstuck yourself. Hey peeps, it's me, Crystal, your favorite mindset coach, working with peeps moving out of a place of feeling stuck and overwhelmed by identifying mindset blocks in order to shift their energy into more of a creative and solution-based outcome so they can experience peace and fulfillment in their everyday lives. As life keeps lifing, Crystal AAAs make you aware of what is and isn't working to uncover your ability to create clarity to take action. I'm so excited. Today is another interview episode. And this time is with a super dope peep who is a former employee that stole my heart for being so direct and honest from day one of meeting her at the hospital I worked at. Her name is Kathleen Eaton, and she is currently working as the primary directive at a major local hospital to ensure her and her team sees patients with the right provider at the right time at the right location to meet their patients' needs. Their goal is to eliminate any barriers that their patients receive in order for them to receive specialty care. In her free time, which she laughed at that when I asked, she is currently in the executive MBA program at VCU and will graduate this semester. Whoop whoop. I can't wait for you to hear more from Kathleen, so listen up now. Kathleen, internet, computers, they suck. Hopefully my computer isn't so loud, but it sounds like a plane is flying overhead. So yeah, that's fun.
I don't hear any of that, so.
Okay, I'm hoping that the mic won't pick it up, but we'll see. And I could try to edit it out. But thank you for being here. I'm so happy we got to do this because one, for a lot of people who don't know you, but there are people I think that do know you because we worked in the same space. I met Kathleen in, I'm not gonna say the hospital, but we worked in a hospital together. I don't want to badmouth. Anyways. Yeah. And I want
we'll keep that between us.
Yes. That'll be our little secret. And for those who know, and that's cool too. Yeah. But I want us to talk about our journey of us first meeting each other and then our journey separate from like me leaving and then you doing your thing and then us reconnecting. So for those who don't know you, Kathleen, how would you like to describe yourself and give all the accolades, all the wins?
It's funny that you say that because I have been asked so many times to describe myself or like intro myself. And every time I'm just like, I don't know, man. So I work in healthcare, obviously, and that journey for me started in radiology. Growing up, I, kind of was always told like, you go to college and you get a job and you buy a house and that's what you do, right? And so I had no idea what to go to college for, right? Like at 16, 17 years old, when you're trying to decide on a college, who knows what you want to do? Let's be honest. And a girlfriend of mine in high school was like, I want to be an x-ray tech. And I was like, you want to be a what? And so me being like the type A individual that I am, I'm like, all right, well, let's do research, right? I do all this research for her, put all this stuff together. And then she's like, you know what, man, this is not what I thought it was. And I'm like, okay, well, I think it's legit. Like, I'm going to do this if you're not. Like, I was always like interested in photography and I'm a little nosy. The combination of like photography and getting to be a little bit nosy was like really appealing to me. I graduated in 2014 with my bachelor's and went straight into working in CT. I worked in that space for like 7 years. And then I was a supervisor of like a file room. And I did that for 2 years. And now I'm in the ambulatory environment and ambulatory scheduling. I got a really awesome opportunity to pivot. And I got a really awesome opportunity where someone said to me, look, I don't know what this job is going to be, but I think that we mesh really well together and I want you to be my partner in crime. And I just kind of latched onto that and it's really grown and it's really awesome. On a personal note, I'm married, I have 2 dogs, just trying to keep it all together. I'm in school, I'm getting my master's, just trying to keep the wheels on the bus, so to speak.
Wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round.
Exactly.
I'm so happy you shared all of that because I didn't know a lot of that. With you researching for somebody else, that's dope. Because my story was, I knew I wanted to, as women, we typically say, hey, I want to help people, or even men too, but as humans, we're like, I want to help. And while that is noble and it's commendable, it's also like, well, what do you want to do? You mentioned, who knows what we want to do? I barely know what I want to eat tomorrow. And you're like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Like, I don't know.
How many times have we had that argument with our husbands? What do you want to eat for dinner, right? Like,
it is the worst game. Somebody should create an app of what do you want to eat? Like, it's too many decisions. Well, that's actually a good point. I feel like that's what life has become. So many multiple decisions, things get more complicated. But the fact that you did research shows your intelligence of, well, what does this entail? Because my mom brought it to my attention. Oh, you said you want to work in the hospital, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a nurse. And I'm like, I don't want to be a doctor. Like, I go to school forever. Again, I mentioned that in the podcast before where someone was like, oh my God, you'll be in school forever. But none of them were doctors, Kathleen.
Right.
Don't take advice from people who are not where you want to be.
I love that so much. Like, I listened to that and you said it and I'm like, that is truth, right? How many times do we accept advice or accept judgment from people that have literally no idea what that space is like?
None. But have a whole paragraph essay of, you don't want to do that because you know what they say. Who the F are they? Who are they?
Right.
I am so thankful that you shared that because it's a different lens for me. My mom was like, well, there's a lady I work with, her daughter's an X-ray tech. And I'm like, what's that? And she was like, they take X-rays like bones. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Still more curious of, I get to see like the bones. But then, when you go to X-ray school, it's way more than bones.
Yes. And I think what appealed to me as well is, right, like, it was a short interaction. I mean, like, that sounds terrible, but it is the God's honest truth, right? Like, I'm not stuck with the same person for 12 hours because as a nurse you are, and you don't have a choice, right? And you're stuck with the same person for 12 hours, sometimes for like weeks on end. And that thought just didn't pan for me.
It's so crazy you're saying that because I had the same thought. My thought was based on fear. Do you know what your thought was based on? Of not staying stuck with the patient for an extended period of time?
I mean, at the time, I was really poor at communication. I was poor at relationships. I was poor at interacting with others. I didn't want to be around other people. So the shorter that interaction could be was the better, right? And ultimately, I think for me, that came from a place of lack of emotional intelligence, right? Like lack of connection, lack of understanding how to make a connection. I didn't understand my own feelings. So how could I take on someone else's?
Wow, that is huge because, again, we're in the same space, but we have different perspectives. But I think the end result is the same because yours was a lack of communication or connection with other people and you wanted to limiting that because if I don't feel like I have that strength, I don't want people to see that. Let's make this shit short so you don't pick up on, I'm just trying to figure this out. Mine was, I was fearful of people dying on me. So it was the fear of disconnection of I'm caring for you. Oh no. But both of those are still kind of based on an unknown. where did you actually know you couldn't be in a room with someone for an extended period of time? Like, were you in practice with that? And then you're like, ooh, I don't like this feeling.
I think at the time it was all unconscious. I think at the time I didn't know who I was, but I didn't know that I didn't know who I was.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
It
right?
does. Yes.
And I had, in my opinion, created these sort of iterative versions of myself based on who I was around, right? And ultimately, I didn't want anyone to know that I cared. Like my MO and my baseline was I'm cold-hearted, that I would say whatever I wanted to because I didn't care. When in reality, I cared so freaking much. I cared to the nth degree. Everything I did was because I cared, but I put on this persona of not giving a shit, basically, because I thought that it was safer that way.
Yeah.
And I don't think I realized that.
Yeah. When do you think you realized that for yourself?
My husband, basically, one day, a situation happened when we were in public, and we got in the car, and he looked at me and he said, you know, you say all these things, and you say that you want to get married, and you say you want to build this life with me. And he's like, but your actions are not indicative of that. And he was like, so if that's what you really want, you need to go to therapy and you need to get your shit together. It took a person that I felt like was everything to me to say that, for me to then flip the script and look at myself. Because up until that point in my life, everything was everyone else's fault. Everything was, you know, woe is me. I am the victim. All these external things are happening to me. And don't get me wrong, like there's, you know, it's life. There's trauma in my story. But at the same time, so many of these things were caused by my own chaos.
And isn't that like the hardest to share? Like, thank you for sharing that, because shout out to the husband. Shout out to the people who see us and know us. I know the saying is better than we know ourselves, but I think what that meaning is, like you mentioned, you weren't conscious of your actions. It's almost like when you're working out. You're eating well, you're drinking more water, these intensive exercises or workouts, whatever, and then people see you and like, oh my God, you look great. And you're like, really? Because you see yourself every day and it's like, I don't see change. I don't see it. But everybody else sees it. We really can't see ourselves from the same lens we were coming from. We have to see ourselves in a different lens. So he
100%.
actually vocalize that to you. I see myself being married to you, Kathleen, but this shit ain't it. So I don't know what the shit needs to be, but this ain't it. And it's like, got it.
Right. And at that point, we've been together for like 5 years. And, you know, he kind of said to me, some of these things were an issue when we first started dating. I just thought that you would like grow up. And that stung, right? Like that at my core, I was like, bruh, like, what did you just say to me? like, pick a girl while she's down, damn.
Yes.
Right? And like, but I think hearing that in a safe space is so different, because you and I also have the unique connection of your father-in-law. Like, at work, your father-in-law would be like, girl, you're crazy, you need meds. And I'd be like, whatever, you're the grumpy old man. Like, what, bruh? Like, come at me. Like, you know, like, I need meds. You need a cigarette. Like, who are you talking to, sir? But it was true.
Facts.
It was true.
Some people don't know, yes, my father-in-law, he's also an expert. My mother-in-law is also an expert. My sister is also an expert. So it's a small community. Yeah, like, and Kathleen actually worked with my father-in-law. And then she came to the hospital I worked at. Her and I share that connection. But yeah, he is a straight shooter, but it's almost the same like you were mentioning with that tough exterior. And I don't know if just most people have it, but he definitely has it. But he's a softie.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And people would say the same thing about me. Crystal, you always speak your mind. And just like you mentioned, Kathleen, you was like, I say what I mean. I'm direct, tough. I mentioned also in another episode that I remember taking on a little bit of that toughness just because growing up, I was perceived as the weak one. Because I was loving, and this is the first time I'm saying it out loud, but even my sisters, I don't even know if they know how strong I am, in a sense of not like I'm gonna beat somebody, but like, no, I'm not taking this. So we need to sit down, we need to have a conversation, and I have questions to ask. That's strength to me, in the sense of I don't have to put on the front no longer, but acknowledging my true power and my true ability to handle shit. And it doesn't have to be this tough exterior or this wall. What can you say about, you mentioned creating a safe space that your fiance, but husband now, was able to create for you and him. Were there any similarities in the safe space with him and me and you at the hospital that we worked at? You can be honest if it wasn't.
To be honest, I think no, right? Like, my husband and I met each other when we were, frankly, at like one of the worst spots in our lives. He was not in school. He was working at a restaurant. I was in school full time. I had just gotten out of a really abusive relationship. I had 3 jobs. I was living my best life, which is such a joke. And we, in a lot of ways, grew up together, right? We fostered our own environment. We both told each other all of the things in our past that had made us the people that we were today. And I think seeing that and altering your actions based on that history is huge, right? Like saying, I see you and I see that this is a trigger for you and I'm not going to poke at that. Understanding that history and understanding those wounds and getting to really know a person for who they are, which was like the first time I'd ever had that. Because in the beginning, we were just friends. And I think that was a huge difference for me too, right? I had never fostered a relationship out of a friendship. And I think it's a core of our relationship. We're best friends, and that's why we work, and that's why that safe space is there. Whereas I think at work, our relationship, to be honest, and I don't think I've ever told you this, but for me, our relationship came from a place of envy. At the time, I wanted to be you. You dressed the way I thought someone in that position should dress. You carried yourself in a manner in which I aspired to carry myself. You were a communicator, and at the end of the day, I knew that you gave a shit, which in a healthcare environment is rare. And I knew that you were doing what you could. I think I was also one of the only people that could recognize that it was beyond your control, right? Like the things that went down in our circumstance were not your situations to carry or to control. And it was very obvious to me, right? And so then I think for me, it was the fact that I was envious of you in a way, that I knew that you cared. And there was just something about that allowed me to be truthful. Does that make sense?
It does. And you have not told me that. Being in that role was hard. I knew I wanted to show up. And showing up is not just, it is dressing the part, because that's what made me feel good. Like if I wore frumpy clothes, you know what I mean? Like if I had my hair just whatever, it's that energy of just like, kind of like everybody in sweatpants for quarantine. Like we're chilling at home. It's like, and then you're like, I gotta like wear real clothes. It's a mind shift. Like,
look at me right now. I still got a sweatshirt on.
I like your sweatshirt. It's cute. Like, and there's a difference. You still are not. You're still put together. Like being put together doesn't mean you have to wear a certain amount of makeup or you have to wear this type of clothes. You wear what makes you feel comfortable. And in that role, I felt comfortable wearing like a blazer. I felt comfortable wearing flats. I'm not wearing heels. I'm already tall. I'm not hurting my feet. No. But thank you for sharing that perspective, because I didn't know that. And I appreciate hearing that. And when I put in my notice, a couple more people told me what you said. Like, Crystal, you tried your hardest. And that was something I didn't know I needed. Much like, when everybody knows, if you listen to the previous episodes, I left corporate in like 2.5 years ago. It'll be 3 in May of 2022. And I said, to myself, like, just, I need to do something different. So I started my coaching business the beginning of 2021, like in March. Because I was like, I want to share my experiences, but create a business that provide a solution for people like me when I was in that corporate position. What the F do I do now? And it's not therapy, but it can be therapeutic to have someone in your corner who basically just scoops you up and be like, I see you. Yeah, you want to do this weird thing that everybody else thinks is weird, but you are passionate about. Let's do it. How do we do that? But honors your voice so that you can get that time, that peace. If it's more money, whatever it is, that's what I work with. But I'm saying this because Kathleen hit me up in my DMs as I was starting that practice of just being more intentional with my messaging on Instagram, whether that's videos, posting, empowering stories, or just quotes. I didn't even know Kathleen was even on Instagram and she was active, but she ended up sliding into my DMs and was like, I love what you're posting. I appreciate it. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, and so just like you shared that story with me of you were envious of that role, like I hated that role because of how people looked at me. And your supervisor, I'm gonna say her name. Well, they might know where she works. Anyways, at that hospital we worked at, shout out to you. You know who you are. I love you. I thank you so much. Like, probably one of the hardest working radiology departments, which I fought hard for because I saw how hard they worked. I appreciate you sharing that. But Kathleen, I looked up to you because you were about your shit. Like you mentioned, you work in 3 jobs. That doesn't surprise me. You were a hard worker and you wanted things organized and you implemented organization and you were a team player. You weren't one of these people who worked hard but then hated everybody in the department. That was never you. Yeah. I mean, you might have your select few. Like, we're all human. Like, we have our select few. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that you mention it in that way, right? That I implemented organization and I implemented like standards, right? And it's funny that you say that because in my mind, I did that because people weren't doing things the way that I thought were effective. Like for me, that came from a place of annoyance, right? Like, what are you doing? Right? Like if I ask you to do something once and you don't do it, I'm gonna go do it myself. Like, and that is just me as a person. Bless my husband, because the amount of times I hear I was gonna do it. You know, that's a battle I still fight.
Yeah. Because it goes back to, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? You know what I mean? I learned that early because I remember saying like, Devon, I want you to want to wash the dishes. And he was like, I'll do it, but I'm not going to want to do that shit. Like, I'm just not. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And it took me some long time to realize, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Meaning, do I want the dishes washed, whatever way that looks like for him, or do I want to wash them? I'm tired of washing the effing dishes. So you take it, realizing that like my way is not the only way. And it's not the right way.
Right. And where on the flip side, I've learned, right, to manage my own expectations. So then I say, I need you to do A, B, and C. I would like them done in this order, and this is what I want them done by. And then I let it go, right? Because if not, I'm going to start hopping in and doing things.
Yeah.
When I need to take a break.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have a full-time job. I am in school full-time. Until I started school full-time, I still had 2 jobs. And in one of them, I was a supervisor. Like, so when I get that time, I have to take it. And then I wouldn't delegate. I wouldn't ask for help. I didn't know how to ask for help. First of all, I still don't know how to ask for help sometimes, but I would say, hey, I need you to do this. And then it wouldn't happen in the way I thought it should or the way I thought it should look like. And then I would just take it upon myself to do it. And I would have the biggest chip on my shoulder the whole time. And now we're all not happy.
Yes.
Now we're all angry.
And it's funny you say that because me and my husband, we still talk about this to this day. But it'll be other things like, I don't like cleaning. I now value time way more than a lot of things. And as I get older, I don't know if that's something to be taught or to be experienced, but I feel like I went through both. Yeah, I'll clean, like sweep here, I'll wipe down, but doing a deep clean, me and my husband's like, we don't want to do that. I'd rather have somebody come in and do that. It could be therapeutic, but for me, cooking is therapeutic because I get to eat. So I like cooking when I want to cook, and I'll cook when I don't sometimes, but we'll go back and forth. Like I told him before we got married, I'm not cooking every day. We both work full time. I'm not doing that. We will go back and forth. We'll pick meals together. Like 1 week he'll have 3 meals he'll pick, and then the next week I'll have 3 meals, and we cook back and forth. We'll cook with each other. But it's funny how you say you have your list of this is what I need done. What does it look like if you ask, are you able to do this? And they're like, no. Like,
that's real too. But I think that right now in our circumstance, it's well known that like that's what I need. And he's like, give me a list, tell me what to do. Right.
Oh, cool. Okay, good.
That's something
good.
that like there was a baseline conversation. Yeah. But before there was just a list slapped on the table.
Okay.
So, there was a baseline like, dude, you're crying in the corner of the kitchen. So like, you know, there was a baseline like something's got to give. So I need you to tell me what I need to do to make this not be what this is.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and that is huge. That is huge, recognizing, because there are so many, and I would bet most women who are listening to this is like, yo, I have a hard time because they're not going to do it right. They're not going to. But the question I keep hearing, because I listened to this book, Professional Troublemaker by Lovie Jones, she said, her therapist asked her, do you feel you're not worthy of receiving help? Because there is no other option. Like you mentioned, you're crying in the corner. Like, is this the outcome you want? What is that? And that could be a hard pill to swallow.
It's a big ass pill. It is a really big pill because you're so right. You know, and it goes back to being a kid, right? I always did everything myself. I packed my own lunch. I got my mom up, right? Like I felt like that was my job, and that carries over into a wide array of things. And just, you know, you dig that hole and it's like, is this a hill you really want to die on?
Yes. And you mentioned before when you were at the hospital, you saw no one else was doing it. You're like, well, damn it, I got to do it all. But that's what you did as a kid. You're like, people should be doing stuff. Then I'll do it all.
Right.
I literally just thought about this a couple weeks ago where I told my husband, I was like, I'm just picking up shit that nobody's dropping off for me to carry. Why am I doing? And I'm getting resentful and upset. Like, why won't y'all do this? Why can't you? No one asked for my help. No one asked for your help, Kathleen.
Right.
And that was the biggest, oh shit, I'm creating this for myself.
Yeah. Or something my husband says all the time, which to be honest, infuriates me to my core. And we're not going to tell him I said this, but he's right. And it's so annoying. He says all the time, why are you fighting with yourself? Fuck you. No, we are fighting. We are fighting. I'm fighting with you. But he says that. He'll say, why are you fighting with yourself? You've created this whole narrative up here. And it's like,
So what was your answer to that? Do you have an answer?
Oh, I don't have an answer for that. I've been trying to come up with an answer for that for 8 years.
So I have an answer. I'm now in this coaching certification program, which I love, and it's called Core Energy Leadership, and it's focused on the person and what holds us back from what's already in us, whether it's limiting beliefs, which is a little different than what we hear, but it's based off of what people have told us we are. Crystal, you're the good one. You're the nice one. Like literally, I wanted to do regular teenage girl stuff, and my sisters would say, well, you're the good one. What is wrong with having sex? Right. Now I'm bad because I want to have sex? Like, what is happening? Or it's so, I say that because I know other people feel it and I don't want them to feel alone. Like, this reason we're here is to bring about connection. You're not alone. The big things that keep us from doing whatever we want to do is the gremlins or your ego, and that's what we fight with. So I fight with the good one. I call my gremlin, my ego, the good one. The good one would do everything for everybody. The good one wouldn't ask to be paid for her services in a connection with an organization. Like, oh, I just want to help. I thank God. I had a meeting earlier last week, and this was the first time I said, I do want to help, but I also want to be paid for my services. And if that includes one-on-one coaching, that'll be more expensive. If that's group coaching, it'll be less expensive because you have multiple people. So the cost could be split up. But I know the value of my work. And before, it's like, no, you can't do that. And you're a woman? No. We help. We're here to help. Anybody needs stuff, we should be able to give it to them. I don't want to. I am tired. Now I'm resentful to a person that didn't even ask for my help. Ma'am, we did not ask for you. You don't have the answers. Like, and that's why I said in the beginning, like, each of us have what we need inside of us. But sometimes it gets overlooked or covered up by experiences, what other people have told us we need to be, we should be. And sometimes they're right. Like your husband, he was speaking to the true you. That's why it resonated. And you're like, And that frustration is the other part. That's the ego. It's not bad, but it's there to protect us. But it doesn't really recognize threats. So that's why we're fighting. We continue to fight with ourselves, much like when we fight with other people, we create this war. Like I had done a poll asking people, how do you initiate difficult conversations? And some of them were like, oh, I don't. Or they'll say, oh, I pick my battles. And it kept coming up. I kept feeling this me versus you, or me versus them. And it's like, oh, we're missing the point. This is supposed to bring us together. Is not supposed to bring light to, yeah, Kathleen, you were wrong. And this is how you were wrong. Let me tell you. So you did this, you did that. It's like, what am I not doing that you needed me to do? Like your husband saying, I need a list. Don't just tell me, go to the store and buy groceries. What the fuck am I buying? What do you want?
Right? Like, and I love him to death too, because he's like, I mean, there's a lot of different brands. Can you give me a picture? And I'm like, I will make you a Kroger quick list, boo. Like, I got you.
Teamwork, connection. I got you. Kathleen, what you did was y'all both empowered each other. He asked for what he needed and you fucking gave it to him.
And like, I think for me, and like, it makes me like emotional to think about, right? But like, I didn't know that I could ask for what I needed. I didn't know that was an option.
Yes.
Right? Like,
let's sit in
I didn't know that was a thing.
Let's sit in, listeners. Did you know you can ask for what you need and what you want? Because those are two different things, but you could have both. And it makes me emotional too, because there's so many dope ass people out there that don't even know how dope they are because they keep this shield up, thinking they're protecting themselves, thinking they're keeping the bad out, but they're keeping all the good out too. All the connections, the love, the support. And again, the simple example of y'all needing groceries that I just made up. You need to eat. You having that conversation like, can you go to the store? Look, I don't know what she wants. He could have been in his head like, oh, I don't want to go to the grocery store because I never picked the right thing. And then she gets mad and I can't do anything right. I'm making all of this up. But those are the stories that we tend to tell ourselves instead of saying, yo, I don't know what to get. That's vulnerability. And even if it's going to a damn grocery store, that's still you showing vulnerability of, I don't know. It is so simple. We make it so hard. And it's the same for our jobs. Hey, I don't want to work 50 hours a week. I don't want to work 60 hours a week. And people might look at you crazy, but take that as information. Oh, so I said I don't want to do this. They're still making me do this. I clearly don't want to do this. Let's have a conversation. And the conversation is not, again, to pit you against the other person. It's about connection. Are we on the same page? Can we get on the same page? Are you willing to meet me in the same damn book? If not, right. You have an option of, hey, I'm going to look for another job. Hey, maybe I'll work with someone and maybe I'll do something totally different. Like me being an x-ray and becoming a coach was never a part of the plan. But the journey was beautiful. Like it,
right.
Universe, God, all the energies, like I could not have pictured all of this. There's no way my imagination would have taken me there. My faith, and also recognizing my inner compass, my inner voice, and my intuition of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to feel bad walking into work every single day, crying when I get home. Now I'm starting to get kind of resentful and mean and kind of pretty negative. Like, Kathleen, tell me how you got from when we were working together to where you are now. Like, where did you get stuck in between?
And that is such a loaded question, right? So when we first met, I had gone from one hospital to another hospital. The first hospital I worked at was all I knew. That hospital was very cold. That hospital was very, you're a young white girl. That hospital was very sit down, shut up. And I saw a lot of things there that impacted me in much larger ways than I think I realized. And I think that I learned there that you do your job, you shut up, you sit down, and you leave. And I came to your hospital where people were asking me about my life. People expected me to ask them about their life. I'm like, can you give the damn meds? Like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't care about your grandkid, dude. In my mind, I'm like, why do you care anything about me? Do your job and get out of my way. And I think for me, it was so confusing, right? Like I had gone from the apocalypse to like we sing in the song of Jesus. And I was like, what? How did we get here? No one gave me a path to go from what? This came from the depths of hell. And now we're talking about singing to Jesus. I was so confused and I didn't understand, right? And that old environment really allowed me to continue into habits and behaviors and thought processes that were not serving me. And I think ultimately it came down to a point of me sitting with my therapist once a week, sometimes twice a week if it was a bad one. Let's be real. You know, her saying to me, what about this is serving you? I'm sorry, but every single person, I don't care how old you are, that is a question you should be asking yourself. What are you getting out of this behavior? How is this serving you? And at one point, my therapist said to me, Kathleen, we can sit and we can talk. And I don't care. You're paying me. You know, she said this to me. She said, you're paying me. And we can sit here and you can pay me for as long as you want. But if you continue with these behaviors, nothing is going to change. And I came home and I looked at my husband and I said, I think my therapist called me a shitty person today. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what just happened, but I have feelings, right? Like, I don't know what they are yet. But we're going to marinate on that for a little bit. And to be honest, I sat on that for like a year and a half. I sat on that for a good and long time. Because here's the other thing. You can't expect change if you're not willing to do the work. You can't expect change if you don't have the mental capacity to actually change. And you can't expect to change unless you are ready. And what ready is looks so different to so many people. Being ready was so many different things. That involved me stop drinking. And that is unique to me. but I think that it's an important piece of my puzzle. I didn't want to have feelings. I didn't want to think about feelings. I didn't understand feelings. And I used alcohol as a way to, just shove it all down. And I thought that I was good at compartmentalization. And I thought that's why I was good at my job, right? Because I was organized and I could compartmentalize things. And, I could do CPR and then put an IV in a baby. And I could be two completely different people in the span of 30 minutes. And I thought that was a strength. That's not a strength. That is trauma. That is pain. That is not processing. I realized one day in therapy that, I was holding on to a death that happened in middle school because you never process it. You don't get taught how to deal with these things. And that's not my parents' fault. They didn't know how to deal with it either. I think for me, it was really shedding all of those layers and looking at the root of the issue. What is actually happening here? And I think for me, it was, I had never taken the time to figure out who I was. I didn't know who I was. So I created these versions and these iterations from other people, from other situations. And ultimately it came from a place of fear and it came from a place of pain. And I was sad and I didn't know what to do with that. So I compartmentalized. I made it work. But ultimately for me, it was doing the work, and that work was messy and that work was hard and that work took years, and I'm still doing that work. I strive to be better tomorrow than I was today. And I think for me, the biggest game changer was me being willing. And that is the key word right there. I was willing to look at myself, look at the role I played in that situation, whatever the situation was, right? And say, what have I done in this situation? And what can I do to change it? Because I can't control Crystal. I can't control what Crystal thinks about what's coming out of my mouth. I can't control Crystal's reaction to me. I can't control what Crystal thinks about me, but I can control Kathleen. I can control how I show up for Crystal. I can control what I say to Crystal. And really just like parking my ass in my own lane, right? Like, and that sounds so basic, but like stay in your lane, man. Like clean up your space, clean up your area, right? Clean your office. It's not my job to clean Crystal's office. It's my job to clean my office, right? And those were really hard lessons to learn. And I stuck my foot in my mouth a million times, and you damn well know it. And so I mean, it ultimately came down to me being willing to look at myself, look at my side of the street, look at the things that I could control, and be willing to say, how can I make this better? How can I show up better? How can I do better? What can I learn from this? Instead of saying, why would you do that? Why would you ask me that? What are you doing? Answer the question. They probably have a point, right? Like what you don't even know where they're going with it. They may not even understand any of the words that just came out of your mouth, right? Like,
this is, I'm like, my body is tingling, like slow tears, like 1 tear, 2 tears, just the emotions, because you said so much. And I know I'm not going to be able to repeat it all, but I celebrate you for that whole process that you did just now. That you just gave us was beautiful. It was so true. And I saw myself in much of what you shared, because we're not taught feelings. Literally, I have a feelings wheel on my water cup. How you feeling today, Kathleen? Oh, fine. Fine is not a feeling.
It's not.
I'm good.
Who tells you that?
Good is not a feeling. Crystal, what are you talking about? So I'm looking at my cup right now. We have surprise, we have happy, we have sad, we have disgust, anger, fear, confused, amazed, joyful. Those are feelings. So when you mentioned the death from many years ago, I can't imagine how many people are experiencing that, because I started thinking about people I've lost and like, did I actually process it? I do think as I got older, anyways, that'll probably be another episode. I maybe process it a little bit more. Like even the death of our dog, for me, it was not just for getting him. I wanted to honor him. And any dog I saw, Kathleen, so our dog, his name was Coco when I was growing up in high school. He was a poodle. We named him Coco, but he was white, which we were kids, we know. Like, everyone's like, is he brown? It's like, no, he's white. And they're like, what? But you said Coco. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Coconut, maybe? Oh, no.
There we go.
But any dog I saw, I'm like, ooh, Coco. Me communicating his thing, and when I saw a dog, provided me peace, and I was able to process it. I don't know why. My younger sister, for her, it was her getting a dog, a new dog, and I remember having a conversation with her, like, how dare you disrespect Coco's name? Like, he's only been dead for like months. Her coping was to have that companionship. But I didn't know at the time I was judging the F out of her. Because that's what I do best. But I'm actually not. I do not honor that because like you said, I have to stay in my lane. And I learned through that it was whenever we're trying to fix other people, analyze other people, what do we get to avoid by messing around with them? What are we avoiding in our own life?
Right.
Oh, I hate my job and I'm scared to tell my spouse that I want to leave.
Right.
Oh, I can't handle this job. Am I weak? Oh, I'm a flip-flop. Because now I used to sell Arbonne products, but now I'm doing a coaching business. What are you doing? Oh, and now you got a podcast? I am now doing the things that bring me joy. Joy is on the feelings wheel. And joy is not happy. It is the knowing, basically what I think you mentioned, maybe you didn't, maybe I'm just thinking things will be because I can control what I can control, but I can't control other people. And that's what happens to other people, the state of the world. I can make an impact, but I have to make sure I'm good first.
Right. And I think for me, a huge piece of that too, right, was letting go, right? Because we hold on to all of that shit. We carry all of it, right? And I remember saying like, well, the world is on my shoulders. Who asked the world to be on your shoulders, Kathleen?
Hey, Kathleen, can you hold the world real quick?
Right. Did the universe say, you are the one? No. And I remember one day I was sitting in my office and I literally was sitting in my office crying. And I remember saying to myself, inhale the universe, exhale Kathleen. Like, because I was just like, we gotta get some new energy in here. Yeah. We gotta, this ain't working. So what is going to work? I think that is a problem many, especially women, but it's not exclusive to women, but I think especially women feel like this isn't working. What am I doing wrong? It's not what you're doing wrong. Come at it from another angle. Okay, this isn't working. Try another way. Oh, the window's locked. Okay, is there a door? Right? Like, it's so simple, but I think that at least for me, it's like, you're conditioned to think if this didn't work right the first time and that you didn't do this perfectly, it's a you problem. It's not a you problem. Sometimes it's the approach. Sometimes it's the people around you. Sometimes, it's what in this situation is not serving you.
Yes. And I'm so filled. I feel just so honored and thankful that you were able to have this conversation with me. Like, how do you, and we can wrap it up after this, but how do you consciously unstuck yourself? What are the things that you implemented in your life to keep you unstuck?
I think one of the biggest things is taking a breath. And that is so, I used to look at people that would say, oh, just take the time. Just take a breath. Why don't you just, marinate on that for a bit? And I was like, fuck you. Like, get out of here. Like, what? Get a grip, man. Like, this woo-woo shit. And now I'm the most woo-woo bitch. I'm like, okay, well, I hated my job. I did. I hated my job. I hated every second of it. I was miserable. And I was vocally miserable, like inappropriately vocally miserable, right? Like, I was applying to jobs. And I interviewed 5 times for this one job. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get this shit. This could be perfect. This is exactly what I need. Blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I had applied to this job because it was open, not because it was necessarily what I wanted to do. But through these 5 interviews, I convinced myself that this is it. This is going to be my ticket. I got to have it. And then I didn't get the job. And I was like, the fuck? How dare you interview you five times and reject me? Like, let's talk about a big ego, right? Like, what?
Yes.
What? That, no. And I remember just handing it over. And that to me has been a big piece. I'm trying to like fix, manage, and control all these things. And I'm holding it so tight. And that doesn't work. Let it go. I got to give it up. And for me, that's not God. And that's fine. For me, that's the universe. For me, that is something that is not me, right? It doesn't matter what you call it. It doesn't matter what you think about it. Sometimes it's Crystal. Sometimes it's other women, you know? Sometimes it's my husband. Sometimes it's my dog. Sometimes it's these gorgeous leaves and the way the sun comes through them, right? Like, as long as it's not me, I got to give it up. And that's been a huge thing for me, is just believing in something that's not me, believing in something I can't see, believing in something I can't describe, right?
Yes.
And that's what I mean when I say, like, let's inhale the universe, right? Like, we gotta get some new energy in here. And so for me, that has been a massive, massive game changer for when I feel stuck on that day to day is, okay, well, let's give it up. I can't control this.
Ooh.
I'm going to do what's best for me, and we're going to move on.
That's good. That is, because all of that is connected for me. Universe, energy, light, God, love. It's the same nature. Being around water, this burst of energy, just looking at water. Like a clubhouse has like water around it, and they have swings now. I walked my dog yesterday and we just sat and he was looking at the geese, and I was like, this is just, it is a refueling. So like you say, breathe. Breathing could be walking in the neighborhood. Breathing could be riding your bike. Breathing could be cooking your favorite whatever. Breathing could be meditating. Breathing could be take a fucking nap.
Right.
Breathing could be talking.
Can we normalize that?
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
I mean, sometimes you just need a break. Turn it off. Turn it off. Because I mean, I think getting stuck in my mind is such a mental thing. You're so up here and those wheels are churning and you're forcing them to churn. You're forcing so hard and you're like,
churn, baby, churn,
I'm
churn,
gonna
baby,
get it. I'm gonna get it.
Churn.
Yeah. And like, for me, sometimes it even goes back to, you know, what you said to me that day, right? Like, we're at work one day, I'm having a hard time, I done pissed off this old lady, I didn't mean to, like, and I'm like, Crystal, I don't understand, like, why can't you just do her job? And I don't understand why she doesn't realize that I can't drop everything for her. And I remember you looked at me and you said, Kathleen, stick to the facts. And that has stuck with me to today, right? Like, stick to the facts. Okay, I'm in a sterile procedure. I can't take a break right now. Can you please sit that on the counter? Let the patient know I'll get to them as soon as possible. I can't give you a time frame right now, right? Like, stick to the facts. And that has served me so well, right? Because then I'm not having this emotional response. I'm not having this, can you just get out, right? You know, and that emotional response can be so ugly. You know, you're like resentful at yourself for being ugly. Because that's
you just keep going. You just keep going. But
this little hamster wheel.
you hit it on the head when you said stick to the facts, because if you throw the emotions in it and you're not able to process your emotions, you can't even name them. Oh, you just went chaotic. You're like, I'm feeling shit. God damn it. Like, it comes out that way because you don't even know how to process it. But you mentioning the facts, this is what it is. You can't control the other person, but you're also not trying to control yourself in the situation. You're just like, hey, this is what's happening. I'm sitting in a chair. Kathleen is on the camera, and we're talking. I'm not like, oh, well, Kathleen, my Bluetooth wasn't working. And then I got really mad. And like, I had to let that go when it first happened, when we first got on. That happened, but we're here now. These are the facts now. And I want people to recognize, in my study for becoming a certified coach, we talk about energy. And level 1 energy is that victim, that it is that, oh, why is this happening to me? Why is this? But that feeling, you're tired. So if you're excessively tired, you're probably on that victim scale of everything's happened to me, nothing will go my way, I can't do this, every time I try to do that. Take a step back and breathe. And you breathing will bring you up to just another level, but you're not in that tiredness of that victim stage. And that is just beautiful the way you put that. Y'all breathe and listen to this podcast again. Kathleen, I adore you. I appreciate you. I'm so thankful for you. I'm thankful that the universe brought those words out of your mouth to us today. I needed to hear it. And I look forward to what we both create with this new knowing and continuously unstucking ourselves, because we're not perfect, we're human. So what do you want to end with? Because I don't know if your Instagram is private or public, but
it is private, yeah.
All right, so y'all leave her alone then.
No, I think ultimately for me, one, just thank you for listening, right? Like, it's still a new concept to me that someone might want to hear what I have to say. That's so new, right? This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to even operate on this level, right? It's dope. It's cool. For me, the biggest takeaway is, how is this serving you, right? What is benefiting you from this circumstance, this action, this reaction, this inaction, right? I recently said to someone else, like, I feel like I'm experiencing the consequences of my own actions right now. Like that stupid TikTok. And she looked at me and she said, "You mean the consequences of your inactions?" And I was like,
mic drop.
Yeah, right? And so I think, those are equal things, right? Your actions or your non-actions, right? I think for me, just thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And, keep listening to Crystal, because you're saying some dope shit.
Yay!
And I've never said dope before, and you say it all the time. And it's now becoming part of my language. So thank you.
I love you, and you are dope. And this is what the podcast is created for, the constant connection. You reached out to me on Instagram. That's where it started. Just you appreciating what I was posting, didn't even know. And then our conversation kept going, and I was like, oh, I have to have her on, because you gave me something I didn't think I needed or was even looking for. And that is the beauty of this life. You gotta learn to let it in, though. Gotta let it in. And thank you for allowing me to let it in and allow my listeners to listen. Because Kathleen is dope, y'all. And I'm gonna share comments that you share with me about her, because I want to keep this energy going. So please share it. And thank you, Kathleen. I love you.
So much.
Bye.
Bye.
Like I mentioned on our first interview episode, we are doing something new. I'm asking each of my Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Cinnamon podcast guests to create their very own unique Unstuck Affirmations. Here are Kathleen's Unstuck Affirmations. Enjoy.
I practice unstucking myself by doing things that I say I will do and following through timely, unlike the timely delivery of these unstuck quotes to Crystal. I am unstuck when I look for growth, and my mind is open to new things. I unstuck myself by trusting my instincts and addressing my role in potential conflict. I stay unstuck by embracing vulnerability and asking for help even when it's tough. I practice unstucking myself by looking inward and sitting with tough emotions.
That's a wrap, peeps, for our time with Kathleen for our special interview episode. I'm liking these, but would love to hear from you. So hit me up on Instagram at Crystal Clear Purposes with a black thumbs up. and details about your favorite parts in this interview episode. I'm making it difficult for some of y'all to see if y'all really are Pete from Crystaltown. So choose the black thumbs up. No, but for real, what aha moments have y'all been having? I know a few of y'all be having full out conversations with me as you listen to the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast, riding in your car, cooking, showering, whatever. But it's really, really dope because you can feel my energy directed towards you to tap into your own superpower. So I'm doing something right. So here are today's Unstuck questions and gems that were shared. Number 1, who knows what you want to do with your life at the age of 16 or 17 when we can barely decide what to eat for dinner day after day? Give yourself grace. Number 2, how many times in life do we accept advice or accept judgment from people who have no idea where we want to go, nor have they even accomplished what we are seeking to accomplish? Number 3, if no one has asked for your help, why are you creating chaos, more work, stress for yourself? Number 4, why are you fighting with yourself? You've created this entire narrative in your head that's not even true. Number 5, did you know you can ask for what you want and need? Number 6, sometimes our first introduction to a situation sets the foundation for what we like and don't like, which limits us from many other perspectives. That's why being curious is so important. Kathleen's first experience working at a hospital was sit down, shut up, and go home, which was the complete opposite of her second experience. Stay curious. Number 7, you can't expect to change if you are not willing to do the work to change, meaning stop repeating the same actions and expecting a different result. Number 8, you also can't expect to change if you're not ready, and being ready looks different for everybody. Number 9, sometimes it's not a you problem, but maybe it's the approach or the people you're around. And sometimes it requires some awareness of what's not serving you in those situations. Number 10, you can change. As Kathleen mentioned, she looked at others who took their time to breathe, assess their situation, and gave themselves grace in life. And she said, get the F out of here with that. But now she titles herself as the most woo-woo Grinch ever. My loyal listeners will catch on to that. Number 11, stick to the facts. In doing so, you'll be able to respond rather than react. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, rate, leave a review of this podcast to boost and highlight the work we are putting in together to raise the energy of others. Build a safe space to grow and honor our voices and stories through it all. Sending you love and light through this mic as you write your unstuck questions and gems to turn your actions into wins. Until then, stay unstuck, y'all. Bye.